What is happening, people? Scarface first talk here, back with one of these weekly shows. Today, I'm joined by a fantastic panel. Some of them with me now. Firstly, Ben, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Harry. How are you?
No, I'm very good, thank you. No, thank you very much for coming on. For people who don't know, Ben is one of our thumbnail and graphic designers at Scarface Versal. So thank you very much, Ben, for coming on. Lois, your debut on the channel, obviously recently appointed as admin of the Scarface Versal page. I mean, you've been a fantastic asset. So how have you been?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm really glad about it. I've been in the chat a lot, and I'm glad to finally be able to speak on it.
No, it's fantastic. I can't wait to get into it. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It's free to do so, and it helps the channel and the podcast grow. If you're listening on a podcast platform, a lot of you do, so big up to each and every single one of you. Don't forget to drop us a follow and a 5-star review. We will crack straight into it. And obviously, it is a Tottenham transfer-based show. Hasn't been that much transfer activity throughout the whole window, but in particular this week. So to kick it off, I do want to focus a little bit on England and Gareth Southgate because, our last show was, following England's defeat to Spain, where Southgate was still in the job. A lot's changed since then for people who don't know, and Southgate has resigned after 8 years. So, Ben, I'll come to you. What do you make of the decision? And do you feel sorry for Southgate a little bit? Would you think he's pushed out by England fans? What do you kind of make of the whole situation?
I think it was a long time coming, if I'm honest. I think he's done a great job in terms of, got to say, on paper, you look at the tournaments, we've always got far tournaments. Or like in the World Cup, the most recent one, we did go out in the quarterfinals, but it was only to France and a very tight game. So I think he has to have credit for that in terms of we've always stayed in games in big tournaments. We've never been battered by a team that got knocked out or lost to like an embarrassing opponent, Iceland, the tournament before he was appointed. But had it a bit stale, and was he getting as much out of the team as he could have, and was it maybe the right time? I think it probably was the right time, if I'm honest, and it was time for change, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Lois, what do you make of the situation? Are you in agreement with Ben, or what do you kind of make of? Obviously, we'll get a little bit more onto his 8 years in general, but the decision, did you see it coming?
I did see it coming. It's a shame though, because I actually really liked him. I thought I actually kind of wanted him to stay on to the World Cup in 2026, to be honest, because I feel like he's done excellent. And although, yeah, we haven't won anything with him, he's taken us to 2 finals and a semi-final in 8 years. It's really good going, and it's a shame because I thought he was going to be the one to do it for us. So it's a shame to see him go.
No, absolutely. Ben, Lois touched on those 8 years then. What do you make of them? Because obviously, you said you're glad it's happened. It is time for change. Do you think he has transformed, England, ultimately, the England national team?
He's definitely changed the sort of media look on the England team in terms of they would get absolutely slated. I know they were kind of in the group stage this tournament getting absolutely hammered in the media, but I think he has changed how the country sort of sees the England national team. So I think he has done a good job in that sense. But yeah, he's had some good moments, like we said. And the main thing is he's kind of put a smile back on England fans' faces. He's created some of the best moments we've seen, created some of the best moments I've had watching football, some of my mates watching it like in the pub or whatever. Some of the moments we've had, like the penalty shootouts. We finally won. I think we've won 3 penalty shootouts under Southgate. 2, one in the World Cup, 1 in the Nations League, and 1 in the Euros, which is something I haven't done for God knows how long. So yeah, real progress has definitely been made, but I think it's time for somebody else to take it that step further.
No, fair enough. Lois, who do you want to replace? Obviously, again, Ben does touch on it then. Who do you think can do the job as well as, if not better than Southgate? Can you see anyone just walking in and winning straight away, like it says in the job advertisement? It's not simple as that, is it?
No, I think it'll take a while. I mean, I think we could be on until about mid-September, until we get. I know we actually play the Nations League right at the start of September. I have no idea who we're going to get. There's been links of Klopp. I do not see that happening. Links of Pochettino. I don't see. I don't think he'll be a foreign manager. I think he'll be an English person. But I just have no idea who it's going to be, because I think it'll be a really hard task to follow what he's done.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Who comes to your mind? Also, you've heard managers linked. You know, Mauricio Pochettino, Jurgen Klopp. Who will it realistically be, and what will that kind of look like?
Well, obviously, like Eddie Howe's been linked, but as much as he said before that England is the job, and it could be Graham Potter potentially, I'm not too sure. I think the only foreign manager it could be would be if they stuck with an interim and got Pep in a year's time, like there was rumoured the other day. I think
Can you see that happening?
I don't know. It's a difficult one because I feel like he's not going to stay at City forever. When's the England job next going to come up? He said he wants to manage a national team next, Pep Guardiola. So it kind of feels like it could all fall into place because Spain aren't going to get rid of their manager now. So it feels like I reckon the FA will speak to him and they'll get I reckon he's their first choice. And if they get a vibe from him that he wouldn't do it, then I think they'll get somebody else in. But I think it would be the only foreign manager I could see coming in. If it's not, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Potter or Eddie Howe, personally.
Potter or Eddie Howe. Okay, fair enough. Welcome onto the show, Robbie. How you doing?
All good, thanks, Harry, mate. Good to see you. Good to see the other two blokes on the panel as well. Hope everyone's having a smashing Friday, and looking forward to talking some football.
No, thank you very much for joining us. And to throw you kind of in the deep end, if you like, Robbie, what do you make of Southgate's resignation last Tuesday? I mean, it's absolutely flown by. What do you kind of make it? And he's 8 years as well as England manager.
Do you know what? I think I underappreciated Southgate as England manager because older generations, my parents, grandparents, Southgate took us to the 2 finals that they've seen. I've seen the same amount of finals than them. They've been following England for donkeys more years than me. I think the football wasn't good whatsoever, and I do think the football could be a lot better with the players that we've had. I'm someone who, when it comes to international football, I don't look at things analytically or statistically. I look at things based on emotion, and the amount of moments he's given us as England manager, you can't take those away from him. The Switzerland game, even in this Euros, and the Watkins last-minute winner against Holland, and the Denmark game and Germany game in the last Euros, and in the World Cup before that, the Colombia game in penalties, and Sweden. These are all great moments that, when you're watching it in a packed-out pub, hugging 50, people that you don't even know with beer flying all over the place, you forget about the style of play and you just enjoy the moment. But for me, I think England needs someone now who can get us over the line. I think Southgate's put the foundations in. I think everything that's happened, as I say, at St George's Park has been fantastic. The shirt, it doesn't feel as heavy for players as it used to. We've had, great generations of talent before. I didn't see them, but, when we had Gerrard, Lampard, and all of these top quality players from 2004 to 2010 in that team, didn't qualify for Euros and didn't really do anything, He's brought these lads together and they enjoy playing for England. I just think we need a manager now with a little bit more tactical understanding who can win us that final, who can get us playing that better style of football with the players that we have.
Who do you think could do that, Robbie? Because obviously, we talked to the guys about names linked, Eddie Howe, Jurgen Klopp, Pochettino, Potter. Could any of them come in and win like that? Is it as simple as that?
I mean, there's a couple that are being named, Serena Viekman and Lee Carsley. I mean, they really don't fill me with excitement. I've got to be honest with you, both of them for different reasons. I think, the managers I'd be looking at, I like the idea of Pochettino. I get that he's Argentinian, for some English fans, you want an Englishman managing England, but I think he is a top quality manager, and I don't think you should be going out there looking at the best England manager or English manager. You should go out there and look for the best manager available when you need a manager. Pochettino has said he'd be, open to managing an international side. And with players like Kane, who thrived under Pochettino, Saka, Bellingham, I don't see how many managers who don't have a job could turn that international job down. All the foundations are in place to go and win something and play beautiful football. I think Eddie Howe, I don't see him leaving Newcastle, I've got to be honest with you. I mean,
no chance.
Graham Potter is the FA's wet dream. He's, speaks quite slowly and well, and they love him as manager. But for me, as I say, Graham Potter is another one who doesn't fill me with excitement. So Klopp, I think Pochettino's up there. I wouldn't mind someone like a Gary O'Neill. It's a bit of a rogue shout. I quite like him, or McKenna, but I don't think they'll go. So I think Pochettino would be my shout. I think but the ones I don't want, Lee Carsley, Serena Viekman, and Graham Potter. I'm not a big fan of those three potentially being there.
Okay, no worries, fair enough. While we've been on air, we have got some breaking news, and it isn't something massive, but I think this just tells you the lack of transfer activity Spurs have been involved in. That we're absolutely clutching at straws.
Yeah.
A player potentially leaving the club. So the breaking news, people can't see it, is Gio Noah in talks for Tottenham with Brian Gill. No agreement on the fee as of yet, but is ongoing on the club and player side. Reporting this is Paul O'Keefe as we're on. So Ben, I'll come to you first. What do your live reaction to this? And do you think Brian Gill's a player that should be shifted this summer? And why hasn't it worked for him?
Well, apparently he's injured as well. I've heard that apparently he's got an ankle. Surprise, surprise. Brian Gill's injured. Yeah, I definitely think he should be out. Never going to suit the Premier League. Brian Gill is never going to have the physicality for it. He's decent little player on the ball, but that doesn't get you far in the Premier League if you can't hack the physicality of it. Defenders just eat you alive if you're as lean as him. So I think he's just a player that's never going to really have a career in the Premier League unless you're like David Silva, an absolute master technician. Then you're never really going to make it personally in the Premier League when you're that weak. So I think a move away is the right thing for him. And he could make a good career for himself in Spain. I think he could be a good player in the Spanish league, but he's just never going to hack it in the Prem. And it's kind of a waste of money, really, because he's not really produced any big moments in a Spurs shirt. You could argue he's not had the playing time, but I think there's a reason why. So I think he should be sold.
Fair enough. Harsh but fair. Get straight to the point. It should be sold. From Ben. Lois, so come to you next. Brian Gill. What do you think about, why hasn't it worked out? Who do you kind of put that on? But also your reaction to this news that he could potentially depart this summer.
God, when I thought breaking news, I thought this is brilliant news. I mean that, but I don't.
We're really clutching at straws here.
Yeah, we are. But I don't think it's worked out. I just don't know if it's because of like the English environment and the weather, if you know what I mean, because that can affect players. Like if you look at him, he's like a scrawny, little, just small guy. If you get what I mean. I'm not trying to disrespect him, but he is. He looks weak for the Premier League. If you get what I mean. The Premier League's a really physical, it's a really strong league, and he just doesn't look like he's able to keep up with it. If you get what I mean. I think he's just more maybe used to what he is known back home in Spain. I think he's a great player. I think technically he's brilliant. I just don't think he has the strength and the ability to keep up with the Premier League.
Okay, fair enough. That's interesting to hear. There's a lot of people mention his physicality that often comes up a lot. I do think it's something that could be worked on, but we haven't seen it worked on. So I have to see if he bulks up, is a word it's kind of used a lot. We'll have to see what happens with that. But Robbie, what do you make of this and Brian Gill's spell at Tottenham? It feels really short because he hasn't got much playing time, whatever you put that down to.
Yeah, I think both the lads are bang on. And look, he's had his chances at Tottenham. He hasn't stepped up, in my opinion. He's had the chances. He looks too lightweight, small, scrawny and weak. He's never going to cut it in the Premier League. It's brutal to say, but I mean, he's had his chances at Tottenham, had his chances in the Premier League, had his chance against lesser opposition in the Europa League and, smaller games in cup competitions. And I've not really been impressed with him once, to be honest. The only time I can remember him having a decent game was, I think, beating Palace 4-0 a couple of seasons ago. But, yeah, he's just not stepped up at all at Spurs. He really hasn't. Okay, go ahead, he can cut it in Spain. He can do it in Spain. I couldn't give him monkeys. If he can't do it at Tottenham or in England, I don't want him at Tottenham and playing in England. I wish him the best if he goes to Spain or goes elsewhere and succeeds and does well. Fair play to him, right? Because he's a good technical footballer. But like the other two lads were saying, it's too for him. It really, really is.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And Robbie, same kind of similar question to you. Can that physical side to the game, if you like, can that be worked on from Brian Gill? A little bit more time in the gym, and can you see him coming back to the Premier League, in the future? Because I think that, obviously we see the links with the club here outside the Premier League. It just doesn't feel right for him at the moment, does it? It just feels too aggressive, I think. Whereas somewhere like Spain, etc., would suit him. Would you agree, Robbie?
Yeah, I think he'd do fairly well in Spain. I mean, as I say, when you said breaking news, I thought finally something. Brian Hill's got nothing this summer transfer. It has been the most boring summer transfer window, not just for Spurs, but for most Premier League clubs, especially the big six that I can remember. There's just nothing going on apart from Man United, and something I've seen a lot. I'm going a bit off track here, so I'll shut up in a second. But other clubs aren't spending, so it's okay that Tottenham. Shouldn't that be even more the reason why we should go out there and spend some money to get one up on?
Absolutely.
But Brian Hill, as I say, I think he'll do well in Spain. I think he'll do well in a lot of other European leagues. The style of play is very, very different. But in England, I just don't think it's going to work. And I don't think it would, even if he was, playing for a Crystal Palace or even a better side in the Championship. It's not the skill or ability he's lacking. It's, as I say, the strength, which is such a huge part.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the game. Sometimes I think underestimated the importance of it as well. But we will move on from the breaking news story. Sorry to touch on it because we've actually had some news, I think, for probably certainly the first time today, whether it's the first time this week or not. Don't hold me to account over it. But it certainly feels that I think Lois, as the admin, can relate to that. But we will keep the subject on Brian Gill because Tottenham today confirmed that Brian Gill and Sergio Reguilon have been granted permission not to travel on the pre-season tour to explore what they call transfer opportunities. So, Ben, I'll come to you first because I want to know kind of your thoughts on this and whether both should be moved on this summer.
Yeah, I think they should, to be honest. Reguilon, he had that one good season at Spurs, but he's had so many injuries since, and I don't know if there's a slight issue between him and Ange. It was a bit unclear what that situation was last summer, with both of them sort of saying different things. Yeah, I think they both should go. Their time at Spurs is up, if we're honest, and we're better off getting any sort of fee we can for them. I don't think we'll get much, but we're better recouping any sort of money we can that can be put something more useful that will benefit the team as opposed to just wages being spent on players that aren't ever going to play.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair point. Lovis, what do you make of obviously that news? Does it come to any surprises? You certainly didn't me. And do you think Sergio Reguilon maybe should be given a second chance, or are you just like, no, just get whatever we can take for him?
I mean, he could have had a second chance because I feel like, especially this preseason so far, I've been really impressed with Jed Spence, and that's come out of nowhere. I didn't expect that at all. I think he's been brilliant. I think he's been up there, one of my best players so far. And a player like that, Sergio Reguilon, could have had that opportunity maybe to shock you, but I don't think he's nowhere near Destiny Udogie. I think he's so much better than him in every department. So I don't think he'll get any game time here. He had a good season. I think was it under I don't remember. I think it was when Gareth Bale was it.
I think Jose, yeah.
Under Jose Mourinho, yeah, when Gareth Bale was here, he had a good season then. But apart from that, he ain't been the same. And yeah, I think we just got to cut our losses and just move him on now.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think in the end, although I do like him, I think that it could be a mistake. It's not one I think is worth taking. Robbie, to bring you in on this, Sergio Reguilon in particular, where do you stand with him and the news that you're hearing today?
I mean, at the end of the day, right, with Reguilon, I reckon there's more chances of him leaving than, than most players. I think he just hasn't quite done it at Spurs. He had a couple of good seasons a few years ago. But as I say, the chance of him leaving is as big as my forehead. It's massive. I don't see him staying at Spurs. I think Ange wants to ship him off. I think, as I say, we've got Udogie and we should go out there and look for another left back now, in my opinion. And as I say, another player just like Brian Hill, it's brutal. Decent games, decent moments, but not going to play in the Premier League or for Spurs, in my opinion. He had the chance at Brentford to play a few games. He wasn't bad, but he also didn't pull up any trees. You're not looking at him like a player like Ross Barkley, who went to Luton going, this is a player you didn't expect to do as well. He sort of did how you'd expect him to do. He was pretty average, 5 or 6s out of 10s every game. So I think Reguilon, another one, he'll do fairly well if he goes to Spain or another country, but at Spurs, just not going to cut it.
No, fair enough. So there we go. I think that Brian Gill, it's a shame to think there's something about him, but obviously hasn't done that that bulking up gym work, if you like, and it just isn't ready for the Premier League yet. Whether he ever will be, I don't know. It's just some players aren't suited to the Premier League. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. About that, it doesn't define you as a player or your caliber and your kind of career, if you like. But I do want to move on to what will, I think, be the main story of tonight, and that is the weekend. Fabrizio Romano gave the here we go to Højbjerg's move to Marseille for what Fabrizio says is 13.5 million euros, which is about 11 million pounds. I can't believe how low it is, to be totally honest with you. And apparently he's completing his medical today. So Ben, we'll kick it off for you, just to put it straight out there, because I'm convinced it is. Is it a bad deal for Spurs, considering what we paid for him and what we could have got from him, a year or two ago?
Right. If I'm not mistaken, has he only got a year left in his contract?
Yeah,
correct.
so.
And he's 30 next August.
I think that's why then, because he's only got a year left. They, in 6 months' time, they could get him for absolutely nothing. So I think that's why it's such a cheap deal. Look, Højbjerg has been one of the most divisive players, I think, in the fan base ever since he joined Spurs, if we're honest. Under Mourinho was probably his best time at Spurs, and when he was probably best suited to being at Spurs. He's a player that can be 9 out of 10 one day and a 1 or 2 out of 10 another day. It can be, like I said, absolutely brilliant. Some days, every pass he's got is pinging out to the left winger, right winger, switches, absolutely perfect. And then another week, he can't make a 4-yard pass. So I've liked him, but I've gone off him a little bit the past year or so, and I'm not sure he's got the ball under Ange and the maybe absolute crisp precision passing under pressure. Consistently. He can do it, don't get me wrong. I've seen him do it in games, but I don't think he can pull it off consistently. And he's not quick enough on the half turn. And just generally, I think it's time for him to move on. But I think for another club, in another system, he could be a great player still.
Absolutely. I mean, you saw Marseille's response to Højbjerg going over there. I know they react to any player, but I don't see something quite like that. And they were there all night. And they weren't going home. I think that they recognise this as a Premier League player with experience on international level as well. So I think that they're quite excited about that move. Lois, I'll come to you. What do you make of the deal? Because some go, it's a really good deal for Spurs, because you can look at it 2 ways, can't you? You can you could say he's 30 next August, he's got a year left on his contract, he wasn't going to commit, and he could have left on a free. Or you look at it from my point of view and go, we paid 15 million for him. He's 28, and I think I personally think he's a 25 million, 30 million player, but because of his contract, etc., you probably could still hold out for 20 million. I believe there's Premier League clubs that would pay that. I just think that we've just wanted to get it over and done with and get the saga over. But where do you stand with it? Are you somewhere in the middle, or are you either side?
I'm kind of in the middle about it. I mean, it's weird to look at, because I feel like some people are reporting that he's a loan with an obligation for 20 million euros. Another reporting it's just a straight fee, 14 million or 13 million. I don't know what's going on. But I mean, I think he was great for us when he first joined in the first 2 years. I think for one season he played like near enough every minute for us. Like there was a game where he was just always playing 90 minutes. He was a really good player. He gives his all for the club. Any club he's at, you can see it. He's really passionate. He's one of those players that he tries his hardest wherever he's playing. He does whatever he can to help the club, and that's why I like him. I thought he was great. But as Ange has arrived, he's not an Ange type of number 5. It's clear. Obviously, Yves Bissouma is a ball carrier number 5, is what I would say. He can pick up the ball from deep areas and move it forward himself, which is key for us. I think at the start of last season, the first 10 games, when Bissouma was really good, that was the ball carrying ability, which Højbjerg does not have. And I think that's why he doesn't fit our system, so he has to be moved on, which is a shame, because I quite like him and I think he's a good squad player to have. But obviously, he doesn't want to be that. He wants to be a starting player, which is fair enough because he's good enough to be.
I couldn't agree with you more. He doesn't suit the system. That's the reality. The manager doesn't want him, so you do have to shift him. But I do think we'll get onto it, very, very shortly. But I do think he is underrated. He's a player you notice never injured, never complains, gets on with the job, does the dirty work, gives 110%. And there's not enough footballers in 2024 who do that. And I think he's a perfect example of your attitude, your discipline, and your work effort will always come over your natural ability. And I think the Ndombele story proves that. And I think the Højbjerg story proves that for both sides. So I think that's the perfect
I
example.
kind of associate Højbjerg with another player like Eric Lamela. Although
Yeah.
some games he wasn't that good, he always gave his all. You see it every game. Amount of try, he kept trying, and that's one thing I really admire about him, because you can see it obviously now, as you said, in that 2024, there's a lot more lazy players and Højbjerg is not one of them. And it's a rare thing to come by now, a player who gives his all for the club, and that's why I think it's a shame he's going. I wish he wasn't.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think you balanced, very balanced with you there, Lois. So I do really appreciate that. Robbie, I want to bring you in on this. Where do you stand with Højbjerg and what you've heard? Because it has divided the fan base. I wouldn't say it's 50-50. I think the majority of people agree it's the right time to shift Højbjerg. But the price has caused confusion. I don't think that it helps that we're hearing different things reported, even from reliable sources. I've heard... I started off at 8 million and now it's potentially 20. So we've heard some crazy numbers all in between. What do you make of it?
I agree with you, Harry. I think he's probably a 25 to 30 million pound player. Maybe not the 30 million, but 25 in my opinion. I think, he's been a loyal servant to the club since he's joined. Hasn't had a moan, about any games or not starting or anything. He's given it his all. Been a bit of a warrior on the pitch. Not the type of Roy King player that some fans make out that he has been, but he has got a bit of that. He's a little bit of a hard nut sometimes on the pitch, and I think, as I say, it's just that little bit of lack of ability that's let him down. For me, I would have rather get than Bissouma. The guy's had like 10 good games at Tottenham in 2 years. Bissouma, he has had much more than that in the last 2 years, and I think when you see him last season coming off the bench, getting a little bit of game time, it wasn't a lack of work ethic. It was just a lack of ability to fit into the system, because he was constantly making clever runs and moving about, brilliantly when he came off the bench. But whenever he get the ball, he makes some stupid pass that give away a chance, or, give the opposition the possession back after we dominated it for 5 to 10 minutes. For example, that Man City game, in the FA Cup, he came on and started linking everything up together brilliantly for 10 minutes. Then it cost us 2 goals in the space of 5. So I think we get the defensive system, a 4-2-3-1 under a manager like a Jose Mourinho, someone like that. He really, really could do well. I mean, that's when he was at his best at Tottenham. But for me, as I say, I would have hoped to get a little bit more than him, but hopefully now we can go out there and strengthen and bring in someone slightly better. But as I say, not got a bad word about Højbjerg, just a little bit of lack of ability and didn't quite work in the system, because he always gave it his all, to be fair to him. You can't take that away.
I do think that's all you can do. And I completely agree with you, Robbie. I do think you're spot on, but I just don't like it when people call like Deadwood and that. Højbjerg will be the first to tell you, and he's said it before, and I'm sure he'll say it again at some point in his career, he's not technically gifted. He knows that. He's not trying to change that, but he knows that he'll give you 110%. He'll be a warrior. He'll fight to the end. There's going to be times next season, whether Højbjerg's the man to do it or not, it doesn't look like it. We need to hold on in games. We may, let's say, under Ange, whether how many years it may take, we get to another Champions League final or a final. We come up against top teams like Real Madrid, Man City's, your Barcelona's. You can't always go out attack and leave yourself vulnerable. There's going to be times where you need someone to take the sting out of the game, and that is what Højbjerg does best. And Serie winners loved him in Mourinho and Conte. So I do think it's that. But before we do move on, Ben, would you say he's underappreciated by Spurs fans?
The way I've always seen Højbjerg, I was just going to say, actually, he did actually end up playing centre-back for games in some times last season. I think, I could be wrong, Burnley in the FA Cup, he might for a few minutes. He did in one game at the back end. But I think the way I've always seen Højbjerg is the people think he's really bad. I've always thought he's never as bad. He's terrible, I thought. But people who think he's amazing, I've never thought he was as good as people thought he was. I've always felt he's overrated by some people and underrated by other people. So yeah, like everyone said, I think if you had Ndombele's ability with Højbjerg's work rate and effort,
you'd be great.
You'd probably have the best midfielder in the world. So but it is what it is. Like you said, you can never say a bad word about his attitude, and it's just a case of thank you, but it's time to go, really.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely reasonable. I'm sad that he's going. If I had the choice, I would keep him. as someone to bring on and protect Leeds, but he is going and arguably it is the right time. And I think someone like Marseille, it's a bargain for them. I think he really worked there. Ultimately, Marseille finished 8th last year. You know, that's their lowest league finish for quite a few years. And they've gone out there and signed a couple of players, including Højbjerg, you know, with Premier League experience. That's the way to do it, I think, bringing Premier League experience, bringing that quality. So Marseille, I think they're in for a good season. And I have no doubt they get a lot of starts there. But if you're Højbjerg, a lot of people go, oh, he's wrong to refuse to sign the contract or wrong to kick up a fuss. But if you're him, you've gone from, and I do believe this, you know, number 1, number 2, maybe number 3 on the team sheet under Mourinho when he was signed. I think people forget how important he was. I think he was up there with Harry Kane at one point during that kind of lockdown period. And Conte, I still think he was a very key first-team player. But now he's gone for me. I think it's one of the last names, if not the last name on the bench of Ange Postecoglou. And who knows, he might not even got there this season with the players that we brought in midfield this summer with Bergevall and Gray. Probably not. And so, you know, if you're him, you're going to want first-team football. I think that's reasonable. But the YouTube chat have mentioned Jacob Ramsey a lot, and he's a player that has been discussed because we're linked with him. Potential swap deal with Lo Celso. So, Lois, we'll start with you to kick it off. What do you make of the thoughts on the swap deal? Because it didn't really go down well generally with the Twitter Spurs fan base. So, what do you think also of Jacob Ramsey?
I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's talented. You can see that. He's quite versatile because he can play on the wing as well. We've seen him play on the wing for Villa, I think, a couple of seasons ago. I think he's a good player. I'm a bit... My concern is how many midfielders we've actually got, because I think we've got a lot more than we actually realise now. With Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Isbasuma, Papsar, Bentancur, Kulusevski can play in the midfield. Maddison can play there. There's a lot of midfielders there, and I think Jacob Ramsey is a good player. With the amount of midfielders that we've got, I just can't see him getting any game time, to be honest, depending on injuries as well. Though.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think it's interesting. See, with Lo Celso is a player that I never really took to when we signed him, and he had a quite a good period. And I don't know, I just never saw what other fans saw.
I feel it was a bit unfortunate with Lo Celso though, because I feel like there were times last season where I was wanting him to start. I remember a game against Man City away. I think he scored. He had a brilliant game, and then we look at that and think, oh well, he's got to start the next game, and then he's benched and didn't get any minutes. I really do feel bad for him because I feel like he's a good player. I feel like he's a decent player that can start some games or at least get some minutes at the end of a game, try and make an impact. But Ange never really gave him a chance. So I feel a bit sorry for him because I feel like he's a good player. And he plays for Argentina as well. He gets in their squad all the time. You see how much success they've got. So they see something in him. And they can't
stop winning, can they?
Exactly, they can't. Winning. So as well, like if they think that highly of him, how can't we think that highly of him? I don't know. But I think Lo Celso is a good player. It's a shame. I don't know if Jacob Ramsey is the right move. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Difficult time. It's horrible, I think, to be making those decisions. You know, who do you go for? How much do you pay? It's harder, I think, than people think. But Robbie, I'll come to you. Focusing on Jacob Ramsey first. Is there better out there, you know, in his position and, you know, value-wise as well? Because I don't know how much it will cost, but I don't think it will be, you know, under 40 million, for example. It might be a lot more than that, but I don't think it'll come cheap, homegrown. Villa really rate him, can play a few positions. So would you rather spend that money, maybe even in a different position, but on a bigger and better, more established player?
I think you said it perfectly there, Harry. There are players who do what Jacob Ramsey does, but just do it better. Eze's a perfect example. I get that it may be, you know, harder to get in now that Elise's left Crystal Palace, but going in for Jacob Ramsey instead of going in for Eze, it's like going in for Luigi over Mario, like going in for Rodney over Delby, you know? Get the better one. Eze literally does what Jacob Ramsey does, but far better. He's a quicker player. Jacob Ramsey's quick, he's quicker. Jacob Ramsey's versatile, so's Eze. Jacob Ramsey's capable of scoring bangers and cutting inside. Eze, you know, is even more capable and does it more. I get Ramsey's had his injury problems, which, you know, hasn't helped him. But at the same time, that should also be a concern when we look at potentially signing him. And if we're swapping him for Lo Celso, you know, I'm not Lo Celso's biggest fan, but I think Lo Celso is a better player than Jacob Ramsey. You know, he absolutely smashes it for Argentina. And whilst I couldn't really give a monkey's what he does for Argentina if he's not doing it for Spurs. The fact that he's proven that he can do it on that huge stage with top players around him, like your Messis and, Dybalas and all of these quality players, and still stand out. You're not going to see Jacob Ramsey ever do that, ever do that at Villa or anywhere else. I think a few seasons ago he stepped up, he was raved about. He's had his problems with injury, as I say, but for me, there's better out there where you've got to pay an extra 15 to 20 million that would make a bigger impact in our team. And a swap deal for Lo Celso, I'm up for selling Lo Celso, but if we're going to straight swap him for Jacob Ramsey, I think that's a little bit of a downgrade.
Yeah, it's a good point. I didn't see it coming, to be honest with you. I thought that we could look to bring in someone like that, but I don't know. I just feel with Ramsey, I just feel that he's a young player, and I think if you're going to go down that route of bringing some young homegrown in, I'd rather turn to the academy, because I could be, again, completely wrong. It wouldn't be the first time, but I think that Ramsey isn't going to walk into that midfield. I don't see him starting in really any case scenario unless we get injuries, even with, obviously, Europe as well. And I just think that Maddison gets in there, Bentacle gets in there, and Presuma gets in there. And that then, maybe you could argue over Bentacle's position because of form, because of injuries, but I think that will be his starting midfield. So Ramsey's going to be on your bench, but can't, Donnelly do that if he doesn't go on loan? That's the way I look at Bergevall. Can't he do it? Isn't that what he's there for? I know he's young, but we'll have to see ultimately.
I feel like it's a classic Levy moment, because I feel like we target one player, for instance, in Eze, 50, 60 million, and then you go, oh, well, I want to play like him, but I can't afford that. So then you go to your next best option, try and get Lo Celso, can I ship him off and get Ramsey? I feel like we've done it too many times, where you're going for someone and then you just look at your second option. Then you can't get your second option, look for your third option. You can't do this. We're not a club that can do this. If we want success, if we want to go for the Europa League, try and win the Europa League, if you want to go for your cup competition, try and win a cup, you can't do that by targeting someone. Or like if we wanted Ivan Toney, then going, oh, we can't afford Ivan Toney, so then you go for someone a bit less, or you go, oh, actually no, why can't we just play Son up front? Like it's just what Levy does. He tries to get a player he wants, but try and get them as cheap as possible, and if that means even going to a different player, and we've done it too many times, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely the worry. Ben, what do you think of Lo Celso potentially going out the door? Is it the right thing to do, and what kind of price should we be looking for to get for him? I mean, obviously, let's say it's separate to the Ramsey deal. Lo Celso alone, how much is he kind of worth?
I mean, I couldn't say off the top of my head how long he's got left in his deal, but it's a weird one with Lo Celso, because I think whenever he's played, he's been brilliant, if I'm honest. Like was touched upon, the Man City game was brilliant. I think it was Bournemouth he played in when Carlson scored just around Christmas. It was brilliant. It was one of his last games. I think he's always been a great player for Spurs whenever he's played. Maybe he had like a season and a half where he was always injured, and then he played one game, wasn't great, then didn't get picked, then got injured. But sort of when he first came in and this last season, I think he's a pretty good player. Like was touched upon, he's just brilliant for Argentina. I mean, he got the winning assist in the Copa America final this season for Argentina. He got the assist that won the whole tournament. But yeah, it's a sad one to see, really. But clearly, Ange just doesn't seem to rate him, it seems. In terms of Jacob Ramsey, I think he's a great player, great up-and-coming player. I think he would be quite suited to us. But yeah, it is a case of spending money on somebody else that's going to have a bigger impact. Probably, I'd say yes. But on terms of your question of how much would I ask for him, you're probably looking around the 30 million mark, you'd probably say. Although not entirely sure how long he's got left in his deal. So that might answer.
I believe it'll be 2 years on his deal.
2 years.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I believe it's 2.
I think about 30 million, I'd probably say then. But he's a player that is capable of being worth a lot more. But I suppose he's never really had a run of games for us to maybe justify that amount of money.
To put it out there, well, firstly, I do agree with you, but I think 30 million, I think we cash in. I honestly do, and I think you put that money, and I don't like to keep bringing this back up, but I don't think he will leave for 1 minute. But you look at Alexander Isak, and you see, I don't think he'll leave Newcastle, but when you see links to him, it's the the top teams in the league, in Manchester City, in Arsenal, even the more ambitious in the market, Chelsea. I know they haven't lived up to it on the pitch. Why aren't Tottenham in that conversation? I think that's what the new stadium we were told would be there for. And with things like that, where you cash in, you get 30 million. All of this, should go towards, for me, in positions where you need it most. And we're hearing things that potentially, obviously we don't know how true it is, of course, for different sources, that we might focus on a winger like Neto, etc. Eze can cover a couple of positions rather than get a striker. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a priority that we bring a striker in. And if we just signed a striker, a top striker, that I'd be happier than not getting one and strengthening midfield. I don't know why we're focusing on that midfield. I think that it has enough depth there. By all means, move players on if you do bring players in, but everything's around our midfield. I don't think that's the problem. I think that we didn't score enough goals, and that put too much pressure on the defence last season. And that caused the goal because we didn't take our chances. We don't kill games. We then drop points ultimately. And that's the way Ange plays. If it was under Mourinho or Conte, I'll go absolutely improve defensively. We don't rely on this defensive system. Romero, Van der Ven are more than capable. Bentancur, Basuma are more than capable of protecting. But it's just a case of we aren't strong enough to kill the game. And that puts pressure on the defence to hold on. And you just can't do that. And that's the problem. I think, of course, at number 6, maybe you need that. But I just feel it's been too centred around the midfield. But that's all I think. But in other news, today... go on, go for it.
Well, I was going to say that I think if there's one... I think Spurs really need to go in for a striker now. As I say, like you said, I think Alexander Isak's a brilliant shout, and by all means, but I think Newcastle deem him untouchable, so that they want at least 100 million, and there is no way you're going to ever find Daniel Levy paying £100 million for one player. That's never ever going to happen. So
that's why we haven't won anything since 2008. That's the frustrating thing. Surely something has to change.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm still happy for Ivan Toney. I think Ivan Toney's great. I think he's a great target man. I think you saw that in the Euros. I think I'm really happy for Ivan Toney. I think 45 million. I think you just got to pay and get it done. I think he's a great player, and I think he'll improve us a lot. Because I think Heung-min Son, personally, I love him. I don't think he's cut to be a striker. I think he needs to play out on the left. I think last season, towards the middle end of last season, a lot of our players tailed off, and he was one player that did that. And then he's got to be. I think Ivan Toney's got to be the one we go in for. I think that's the position we really need to zoom in.
No, fair enough. In other news today, Matthew Craig has joined League One side Barnsley on loan for the 2024-25 season. But I do want to touch on pre-season. So I'll go across the panel in no particular order and just ask, who's impressed you most? So you can give a couple of names and explain your thinking behind it. You're someone like myself, I haven't seen pre-season in depth, but, statistically, etc., a name I might say is someone like Jed Spence, for example, who's done probably a little bit better than others would have expected. So, Lois, we'll start with you, because I know, obviously, as admin of the page, you've kept up to date with some of the pre-season. So I do massively appreciate that. Who stood out to you?
Like you said, Jed Spence, I did not see that coming. I think he's brilliant. In the Hearts game, he got a goal and assist, which I'd never saw coming. And again, against QPR, I thought was brilliant as well. I never saw this coming. And I feel like for the Hearts game, especially, our second string team, you could say, our youngsters, did a lot better than our first team. I don't know why that was the case, but players like Mikey Moore, brilliant. He's been brilliant both games as well. Will Lancashire, brilliant both games as well. I have a bit of a problem with that because Will Lancashire, because he's actually only had 20 minutes both games before getting subbed off, and I don't know why that is the case. Because I think he's been the best striker out of all the strikers we've seen so far, and at 17 years old, that's no easy feat comparing to people like Son. I think Archie Gray's been fantastic, especially as a centre back, because we all know his natural role being a number 5, sitting, protecting the 2 centre backs, and to come in and play there, never playing there before. I think he's been fantastic, Archie Gray, and I'm very happy to have him, and I think he'll be brilliant for us in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Ben, who stood out to you? Jed Spence, is he a name you have been personally impressed with?
Yeah, he's really shone for me. He's shocked me, like Lois said. I can't believe how well he's played, if I'm honest. Got confidence to him as well. Looks like a totally different player, if we're honest, although he's never really had a run of games at Spurs. Him, Mikey Moore, he's been unbelievable. Like Lois said, Will Lancashire, he was brilliant in the Hearts game when he played. I think some players that looked a bit off, which you could just say pre-season rustiness. Sons looks a little bit off. he had a couple of chances in the QPR game where you think, how on earth has he not scored that? I think Johnson's looked quite good. He had one quite dodgy cross in the QPR game that you're thinking, how on earth have you done that? It's went out the stands where it was a simple ball across the box, and you're thinking, how on earth have you done that? But generally, I think he looked a bit more impactful, Johnson, and he's looked a threat. It's a case of last season, a lot of times my frustration with him is he'd start to run at somebody, couldn't beat him for pace, he's just turned and passed it back, where he's linked up quite well with like Pape Sarr, for example. He's made that run in the right-hand channel a couple of times. It's worked well with Johnson. I think he's been decent. Maddison was quite good in the Hearts game. That goal that him and Kulusevski linked up for that Johnson scored was good. Werner, I've not been that impressed with, if I'm honest. I thought he was pretty rubbish in both games. Hearts he did get his classic cut it down the byline, left foot assist, but he's given the ball away way too many times in both games, and I still don't really understand why we've got him back, if I'm honest, other than he can still be a good asset. And I think with the amount of games we're going to play this season in the Europa League, I think on that factor, it was a good idea to bring him in for no money. But should he be starting in the Premier League? No.
Fair enough. It's a big difference. Yeah, the Premier League, I think, that is often forgotten. The leap, if you like, even from like youth academy to first team, it is a big gap. Robbie, who has impressed you or who hasn't? Like, Ben slightly twisted the question, which is, really interesting in terms of who you haven't been impressed with, and names like Werner. So what have you made of that?
Yeah, I think you can't read into pre-season performances of the likes of Sonny and Maddison and players such as that. I'll judge their performances during the Premier League season, but I think a few players like Timo Werner, again, not impressed me whatsoever, but some of the young talent that we've got has really impressed me. The first name that comes to mind, Mikey Moore. I've heard stuff about him for quite a while now, a couple of years. Another Spurs content creator, Adrian, said this guy is genuinely a generational talent. And you watch him, and they're only friendlies, but the way he is on the ball, the talent that he has, I reckon this kid's going to be a star. I really do. I mean, he's 16 years of age, only just turned 16 as well. When you're ready, you're ready. In my opinion, I'd like to see this guy, not necessarily in the first team, but in the squad for a lot of games this season, getting game time in the Premier League. That's the only way we're going to find out if he is this next big thing at Tottenham. I think, he's looked fantastic in these two games, the assist against QPR, the goal against Hearts. Will Lancashire, like Lois said, I would like to see more of him. I thought that finish was fantastic against Hearts. I think a few other players. Dane Scarlett hasn't really impressed me, although he got the goal. But as I say, Archie Gray looks very comfortable in the ball. I don't like the fact that he's being played out of position, if I'm honest with you, at centre back. But we'll see if Ange does that during the season. But Archie Gray, as I say, I think he's looked solid. Mikey Moore genuinely is a future star, in my opinion. Lancashire looked really, really solid. A few players like Donnelly as well, I think looked quite good. And Lucas Bergvall as well, he's another one who really impressed me. But Harry, I am going to have to shoot off. Ben and Lois, I believe it's the first time I've been on a stream with you, so good to meet both of you. And hope everyone has a smashing rest of their Friday night.
Monday
Long
night.
Day. Wish it was
I was going to say wish it was Friday. Where can people find you, Robbie? And thank you very much for jumping on this evening. Talk to people about as well, Lily White Lane.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Great to come on. Lily White Lane, Tottenham channel. Check it out if you can. Drop us a like, a dislike if you don't like it. It's up to you. But as I say, if you do want to give me natter and waffle about Tottenham, check it out. But yeah, pleasure coming on. Big up to all of the lads on the panel in the chat. And as always, come on Spurs.
Out the Spurs.
See you later.
Thank you very much, Robbie. Have a great evening. All the best. Go subscribe to Lily White Lane. We will move on. I do want to focus actually on Jed Spence. That's why I was asking a lot about him, because he got a goal and an assist against Hearts and a solid performance against QPR. So Lois, I'll kick it off with you. Do you keep loan or sell him? What would you do with him? And can he be the cover for Porro that we ultimately looking for?
You got to keep him. I mean, I know it's only 2 games, and we don't want to make a fool of ourselves. And it turns out in the Premier League he's not as good as we make him up to be. But you've got to keep him. I mean, Emerson. I don't know what's going on with Emerson, if he's leaving or not. Obviously, that's kind of cooled down a bit. If he does leave, I think you got to keep him. We don't need to buy anyone. I think he's been brilliant. I think in both pre-season friendlies, he's actually shown up Porro. He's been better than him. I'm not going to read into pre-season friendlies. I still want Porro to start. I think I still want him to start, but I think he's definitely in maybe in like a Carabao Cup or Europa League can play that. I think he looks brilliant going forward as well. We all know that a typical Ange fullback that likes to come into the middle, give you an attacking outlet. He's been doing that. You can see that with the goal and assist. He's an attacking threat from the wing, which is key for Ange. And yeah, I think you've got to keep him 100%.
Okay,
Ben, what do you think?
I think he's brilliant. I think he's been brilliant. I think we've got to get Emerson Royale out. I think. I don't know why we've got, to be honest, so far. I think also in the Hearts game, he was on for 35 seconds and he made an error that led to a goal at the start of the half, and that's not going to help the price with AC Milan. I personally think we've got to get him gone. I think he's never really been good enough for an attacking fullback in the Premier League. He's just not got the ability on the ball. He can be an okay defender some games. He can be a decent defender some of the time, but he's just not got the quality on the ball that we need in any position really. He can't invert into midfield. It's not like his fault. It's not an attitude problem. It's not he's not trying. It's not a work ethic thing. It's just he doesn't have the technical ability to do it. It's kind of just the reality of the player he is. So yeah, I don't think he's suited for Angeball at all. And I'd much prefer Jed Spence stay from how impressive he's looked. But it could be a case of, is Jed Spence willing to sit on the bench for another year of his career? I think how long he's been on the bench, his career at Spurs, is he willing to put up with that? Don't know. I doubt it. But maybe he can fight for his place. Who knows?
Who knows? It's going to be really interesting to see how it does unfold, because I don't know about you guys, but Spencer's a player I kind of wrote off because of his attitude, and whether, again, it is pre-season, right? And Spence has had good moments in his career, but it's the attitude. I've no doubt he's got it. I think we've seen that in glimmers, in little bits, but it's whether he has the right attitude. It's the same with Ivan Toney. He's going to get you goals, but can Ange cope with someone with that attitude? But does Ange be flexible and go, look, these guys are going to win me things. They're going to improve my team and give me a greater chance of progressing. I think sometimes you have to do that. I mean, obviously there is a limit drawn and someone who's deemed poisonous in the dressing room, but I can't imagine a Jed Spence and an Ivan Toney flourishing under Ange Postecoglou. But again, I'd absolutely love to be proved wrong. But we'll keep the situation, the kind of topic, if you like, on strikers. Troy Parrott with Charleston. So firstly, Troy Parrott, since the last show, has joined a Dutch side for 6.7 million. Lois, was it the right decision to cash in on him? Because I thought, if anything, we'd do it on Dane Scarlett. I saw more promising signs from Troy Parrott. I liked what I saw on loan, whether he could do it or not in Spurs shirt. I would have taken a punt on him, signed a striker, and kept Parrott as the backup.
It's a real shame with Troy Parrott, because I remember maybe 3 years ago, we said, I think a lot of Spurs were saying to themselves, we've got Dane Scarlett, we've got Troy Parrott. They are two really good strikers. And we do it every year with these young players. We send them out on loan, send them out on loan. They come back, and then eventually we just sell them for nothing. I don't know why. He deserved a chance. I think he was a good player. I think 6 million, is there a point? I mean, to a club like Spurs, I feel like it's just nothing really. 6 million, it's not going to get you very far. I don't see the point. I think he's good. I don't know why. He never really got a chance. That's why I hate about this, because I think players like Dane Scarlett, Troy Parrott, they're good players. I don't know why they never got a chance, and I really hope with a player like Mikey Moore Lancashire, they get their chance, because I'm sick of seeing these really young players that have been said to have so much potential just never get a chance, and it's a shame. It's a real shame. I wanted him to stay.
It's like with Gill, really. He really hasn't had a chance. See, and what I call a chance, and of course it's risky, but we went through an injury crisis last season with teams, like it or not. We had the most players injured, I think the stats showed. And that period, where we lost to Wolves, Villa, West Ham, start someone like, Parrott or Gill for even 4 or 5 games, for 70, 75 minutes, and see how it goes. But the thing is, it's too big of a risk. But it's not if you do it with the first team as well. I know we didn't have that available at the time. But I don't get it. Like, we play Fulham in the cup where we get knocked out. Do the first team and a couple of kids in there. trial a couple of players. But what we do is we make too many changes that we can't see how those players get on because it doesn't function because they've never played with each other. We like Fulham. What was it? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 changes, and it just didn't flow because none of those players have played together. It was too many changes. So a lot of people go, "Oh, he wasn't good enough," but we don't really know how he would have got on with the first team. That's why we hopefully, I do believe we see it more. We saw it last season. I think we'll see it more this season. Mikey more integrated with the first team. We can learn from them. So what you do is if it's a few games, your game's done like Sheffield United, where it was done in the second half, you put Mikey Moore on how to get on with the first team rather than making 2 or 3 changes. So I think that's the best way to know. But Ben, does, with Parrott, did he get a chance for you? Did he deserve more chances? And do you think it's a right decision? Obviously, it's early to say that we cashed in on him.
It's hard to know, really, if we're honest. Do you think the amount of talent they coming through at Spurs, did maybe the club feel that they were going to exceed Parrott? We can get some money for Parrott already, potentially. Might have been how Spurs saw it because, he never really got a proper shot. I think I remember under Mourinho, it might have been Burnley or somebody that Parrott came on and we were like 5-0 up. And back then, Parrott was, it would have been, I think, about 18, 19, and everyone was going mental about it back then. And he never really got a chance at Spurs since. You think Mikey Moore and Jamie Donley, they were coming on against Man City in the last home game, and even they were having more minutes than Parrott, who's been around for years. I know obviously he was on loan somewhere, but clearly maybe Spurs just didn't feel he was ever going to progress the club, and that maybe they him a loan spell was going to get money for him in the future, while they promote other people. So it's a weird one, but like Lois said, let's hope the same thing doesn't happen with the likes of Mikey Moore, because I think he.
No, I hope not.
Yeah, something.
I really hope not.
That's why it's good to see like Lancashire sign a new contract and that. I just don't think we do it in the right way. We don't see. I think that, and I don't like to be too critical, but in the last few years, I think we haven't loaned players when they should have been loaned, leading to stagnation in their career, and then we haven't used them in the right way. Someone like Parrott, who doesn't feature for a year and a half, then is given a run in and looks really rusty, and they wonder why. It just feels really odd to me. And players have been really, I think that, and I'm a big fan of Fabio Paratici and the work that he's done with Tottenham with the first team. But I'm a believer that in that period, whether you put it down to him or not, but in that period, even a little bit before that, the youth academy was abandoned, which is a real shame, and a lot of players were let go. Makonde, for example, who was and is a talent, whether again it could be at that high level or not, we don't know, because he wasn't loaned when he should have been, and he wasn't utilised and given the opportunity he deserved. So you're like, Dane Scully, we need a striker, of course. But part of me thinks, do you cash in on Richarlison and you take you risk of the younger striker? Arsenal doing that, Chelsea are doing that. Okay, neither of them have set the world alight, but that's how they progress and become good footballers. When are any of the players, apart from Mikey Moore, who's getting a few opportunities, going to make it at Spurs if they aren't getting the opportunity? We've got this lovely academy, lovely facilities, top close, coaches. I witnessed that in person, whether I've done little mini trial days or been to the academy for various reasons. You see the work that goes on, and they are producing talent. I think we can all agree, whether we think it's going to bring us success 5-10 years time or further down the line. We know there's talent there, but something just hasn't quite added up right with me anyway in the last few years. But I do want to finish with Richarlison. So Lois, I will come to you, because there's been a lot of links to Saudi Arabia in the last 24 hours, and we've heard a few numbers thrown around. So what price would you be willing to sell Richarlison for? Obviously, you probably think it has to be more than we paid to him, but we did pay a lot for him. But we're hearing that Spurs will want at least 60 million. I think they're right to demand that, and it would be beyond the Saudis to pay that, will it? Really?
I don't know. If my club said I want Richarlison for 60 million, I feel like you're joking. I like him. I love him. Don't get me wrong. I love him. I think he's definitely a character. That's for sure. I think he's a decent player. I do, and I like him. If he wants to be a squad player, then by all means keep him, because I do think he's good. But if you said to me, I don't think he's clinical enough, is what I'd say. Yeah. I feel like he's maybe wasteful of chances. And if you said to me, right, this season Spurs win the Europa League and your leading striker is Richarlison, I'd be like, you're joking, aren't you? Because I just don't think he's good enough to do it. I don't think if I look at players who are good enough to get us a trophy or get us into a top four, Richarlison does not come to mind, unfortunately. I feel like he's a good player, and I feel like a club like a mid-table club, or even a club like Everton, he could be a star player for them, like he was. But then you go to a club like Tottenham, and then it's just not really the same. I think we paid way too much for him in 50 million. I think if we get 60 million for him, then I feel like we have absolutely robbed the Saudis, and then I'm all for it. But I feel like even 40 million, I'll take 40 million. 40 million pounds, I feel like that's a 10 million loss. I feel like
Really?
yeah, I feel like it's just we got to be done, because if you really think about it, 40 million is the similar price to what you pay for Ivan Toney, and I think there's a big difference between them two. And I think so charge 40, 50 million fine, instantly comes in Ivan Toney. I think that's great business.
Absolutely, 100%. And Tony has to be a striker. I mean, I'm all for potentially bringing in Neto and wingers, etc. But if sign Werner, I don't know why you sign Werner if that's that case. And I've defended the signing a few times.
I don't know.
It doesn't make sense.
I would hope if we sign Tony, then Will Lancashire can kind of become his understudy a bit and be like his backup the number 9.
They have to work with the best. They have to Son.
Yeah.
I think we were lucky to have two, probably the best one. Well, some of the best finishers in the world in our team. We had two at once in Son and Harry Kane for people to learn from. But I don't think Scarlett and Parrott were given those opportunities to work with them enough.
We didn't realise it enough, and I feel like Will Lancashire. If we give Will Lancashire a good few years under a player like Ivan Toney, because Ivan Toney, I think he's about 27 now, maybe 28. I think he'd probably give you 3 to 4 great years, Ivan Toney would, and then you get Will Lancashire underneath him. Well, not, like you get learning. And then when you come through, then as soon as Ivan Toney hasn't got it anymore, you've got Will Lancashire, who'll be in his early 20s, and you can get 10 years of Will Lancashire, who's got great promise and looks to be a player like we've already seen, like Harry Kane. Will he be as good? Probably not, but I feel like he could. I feel like he looks pretty good.
But you can see where it's going, though, can't you? In terms of a year or two's time, that we don't utilise the young players. They get frustrated, refuse to sign a new deal. Tottenham and Daniel Levy don't take the risk, and we sell them. Or they leave on a free. It's happened before, and it will probably happen again. And that is the worry. Because we've got to give them chances.
We feel like we've got lots of great youth players. I feel like we've had over
and I'm not saying start them in the first game. I'm not saying start Mikey Moore every single game, or even start him in a few games. I'm not even saying that. But it's when we have an injury crisis. Like there was a time where we had 7, 8 first-team players out. The whole of the back line was out, bar the goalkeeper. Majority of the midfield was out.
We were playing Emerson at centre back.
Players out of position. That's when you trust the youth.
That's what I got, because I remember like 10 minutes ago you said it.
Newcastle done it with Miley. United done it with Mainu, and it worked. For example,
like I remember you saying that our whole back four was out, and we were playing Emerson and like maybe Ben Davis. I don't mind Ben Davis, but we had a player like Ashley Phillips sitting on the bench. But we all know Ashley Phillips is a natural centre back, and I remember I was saying it. Like we were playing Emerson. Like, why are we playing Emerson at centre back? Play Ashley Phillips as out there, and we've done it too many times. I feel like these youth have to get a chance. And I remember earlier this season as well, we loaned out Alfie Devine to Port Vale. He was excellent, and then we recalled him and sent him on loan to Plymouth Argyle, a step up, and then he just didn't play, and he wasn't good enough for them. Our loan management, as you said earlier, is terrible. We need to really fix up how we loan players and just giving youth players a chance, because players like Harry Kane they were given a chance and they showed you how good he was, and then he was our star man for 10 years or so. And we will never find our next Harry Kane.
We wouldn't give him that opportunity now, though.
No, we wouldn't.
It wouldn't be a Harry Kane.
Troy Parrott could have been our next Harry Kane if you give him a chance 3 years ago. You never knew that. He might go to where he's gone to AZ Alkmaar. He could be there. He could be a star man for them. He could be their best player. You never know. He could be.
I think we regret it with Parrott. Wherever he's gone, he scored goals. And people go, he hasn't done that at Tottenham, but he hasn't had a chance. He's done it in the when he's been given opportunities, really.
You've got to give him a chance. Players like
a couple of penalty shootouts under Mourinho that was involved in, and a start or two. But it's like Fulham last season. I hate to keep bringing it up. It really does frustrate me. Second round of the League Cup. I can take going out of it. It's frustrating as it is, and I can think we can win it. We can win the competition and win the game, of course. If we play the youth, and I can accept that, but we didn't. We played the second team, full of players like Emerson and that kind of level. And it's not the youth. I'd rather play under 21s and lose. You go, well, okay, it is what it is. But it's the fact that we played them and they still couldn't get the job done. I just find it really frustrating. But Ben, for you, with Richarlison, can we get 60 million? Will you take 60 million? Because, you know, I love Richarlison. I mean, you'll know that because you know me very well. I'm a big fan of him. We're stuck up for him. But 60 million, you can't say no to that. You really can't.
No, I think it was another club in another league. We probably wouldn't get money, but I think because it's Saudi Arabia, we might be able to get that sort of fee. Because any club that gets an offer from Saudi Arabia knows they're going to be able to whack on another 10, 20 million to what.
Look at Salah. How much are they going to pay? 250 million, 300 million? Don't know why Liverpool didn't accept. He's not the player he was.
There you go. So that's exactly my point. It's a difficult one because, like Lois said, if you could keep him as a squad player, I probably would keep him. But yeah, I feel like he's a just above average to good Premier League striker, but he's not a Champions League, Europa League level striker. He's not someone that in the big moments you think he's going to score. You've got to think, I know he scored at Old Trafford, but pretty much every other game I can think of that he scored in was against the sort of lesser teams in the league. And don't get wrong, you only play against what you're facing, but is he the striker to take us to scoring enough goals to be fifth, taking us to fourth, third, second, fighting for the league? No, we're not going to win the Premier League with Richarlison as our number 9. But I think he got about 12 goals or something like that in the league last season. So he's still a valuable asset. It's just he shouldn't be the number 1 striker in the team.
Yeah. No, I do agree with that
as well, because I remember I think I tweeted this out. I can't remember if I did ages ago, but Richarlison actually had one of the best goal to minute ratios in the Premier League because he had about 12 appearances and about 11 goals. And I was like, wow. But then I feel like when you look at that statistically, you think, wow, he's amazing. But then realistically in the games, he's just really quiet. And what's happened is someone's whipped in across to him and he's nodded it in. But then for the rest of the game, he's just really gone quiet, and then he's just not really getting involved in the play.
I always had Lane first touch. His first touch.
Yeah.
Questionable. Very questionable. But I think that kind of wraps us up nicely for the show. So thank you to everyone who has tuned in. Thank you all for your questions and contribution as always. Massive thanks to my panel. I'm joined by 2 team members at Scarvy's First Talk. A lot of you say, is it just you, Harry? And I want to know a little bit more about the team. That's why I made some changes recently. Ben, as the thumbnail designer, who produces really good thumbnails, by the way, never fails to impress me, and Lois as well. Unreal commitment, makes it a lot easier for me with GCSE year next year with Lois keeping the content out, and again just trying some new things that have gone down really well. So massive thank you to both of you on the panel, and also thanks to guys for endorsing, if you like, these changes and ultimately really enjoying them. But that kind of wraps us up nicely. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop us a follow if you're listening on a podcast platform. As I said at the start, a lot of you do, so really do appreciate each and every single one of you. But do follow us, give us a 5-star review, and head back to YouTube and smash that subscribe button as well. And earlier today, was very lucky to get a lovely video through from former Spurs player Gary Stevens, who explains well, I had a nice conversation with him, right? And he done this video about following Scarface First Talk, and the thinking behind it is obviously we only post tier 1 from tier 1 sources, should I say? So that's a reliable information. Lois can vouch that. Not a lot of pages do that, so it's a time, and Gary knows that there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of aggregator accounts and information spread. Look at the Højbjerg, the amount of different amounts we've got, whereas we only posted one amount from Fabrizio Romano himself. So it's great to get support of ex-footballers such as Kevin Horlock, who used to play for Man City, and Gary Stevens of Spurs. So here's Gary's video. He said earlier,
follow Scarfy Spurs Talk this summer for all the Spurs news. I can assure you, you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, so there you go. And we made a lot of changes recently, whether that be with a thumbnail or different members appointed to the team. So, it's an exciting summer, whether it lives up to it at the transfer window or not, who knows, but we'll be definitely doing our bit. And we do hope so. But, massive big up to these guys on the panel who the huge driving factor, and they know it as well, behind the growth at the page and the channel. Firstly, Lois, where can people find you? And talk to people about your role kind of as an admin and how if you enjoyed it recently. Hopefully you have.
No, I have enjoyed it. I finished my GCSEs June. It's gone, so I've had absolutely nothing to do these last few weeks, should I say. And then now to obviously be given an admin role on your page, it's been great to keep people updated. Spurs, I've quite enjoy it. Obviously, I've got nothing to do, so it's been really good. And it's good to see other people. Obviously, I know, as you said, using tier 1 sources, it's not easy trying to depict the best players, the best sources to use to try and update fans, because you don't want to obviously give a false update, shall we say, because then it just doesn't go down well. So it is hard, but I really enjoyed it. And obviously with Spurs pre-season, obviously been a lot to update people about, and hopefully with transfer news coming soon, hopefully we'll be keeping updated as well there.
Absolutely. Where can people find you personally as well? Personally,
right media? There, wrong hand. Ramirez 17 season there. I mean, I don't really post that much on X or Twitter. That's my handle. But I don't post much, just my thoughts really, and whatever comes out. But if you really want to see mainly my posts, you've got to be following Scarfy Spurs Talk, because that's where most of my posts will be coming out.
No, thank you very much, Lois. Your contribution, as always, is much appreciated. So, do follow Lois on X, but also, the Scarfy Spurs Talk page. It's actually Scarfy Spurs Talk on X, because it would let me fit the whole name in good old X. So, do drop us a follow. You've seen a little increase in followers recently. So, do appreciate that. Lois, the driving factor behind that. Ben, thank you very much for this evening. Again, talk to people about your role within the team and where people can find you as well, and a bit about your channel.
Yeah, well, I've made some thumbnails for Harry in the past, quite a few. Been kind of increasing my skills and learning new ways of making them the past couple of weeks. My channel, it's been a bit quiet recently. Me and my dad have been very, very busy past couple of weeks, but we're planning to get back up and running as the season comes closer to starting and as more goes on at the club. People, if they want to look at some of my match day vlogs from last season, there's some very funny and some very thrilling moments that have been captured in there, like the moment against Sheffield United last season where we won in the 100th minute, beating Liverpool right at the end. So there's some great content and some great moments on those videos if people want to check them out, and there'll be many more to come in the next season. So if people want to check that out, Bateman Talks Tottenham on YouTube and on TikTok now as well.
Yeah, breaking news just come out from Tottenham Hotspur, by the way. Just want to let you know, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has gone permanent.
It's gone.
That's what
there we go. To wrap up the show, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has left. I better go on with that article about Pierre-Emile Højbjerg this evening then. But no, thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate every single one of you tuning in. Whether it be you're following, you're subscribing, you're listening, we do really, really appreciate it. And we took that decision on X, for example, to just post from tier 1 sources because we do really care about you guys. And, it's easier not to, as Lois said, so there isn't a lot of tier 1 sources or information going around, like we said this week. So we try and provide you with different things like stats and little player socials, etc. at the top of that. But, it's really important that you're kept up to date, of course, but with reliable information. So that is the driving force, what we are doing. So thank you very much. Do join the community. But for now, a massive come on you Spurs, and wherever you're listening, what time you're listening, have a fantastic morning, evening, afternoon. Up Spurs.
You were working as a manager at Celtic Park when we met you. We picked you out, you shook us up and turned us around. You've turned us into something new. And Postecoglou, you know that we believe it when you say you're gonna change it. And Postecoglou, we're the mighty Tottenham and nobody's gonna stop them. Oh, he looks so fine in blue and lily white. And then he said to me, I'm from a land down under. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh. Master Carlo